Well, Morena, welcome. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. I think I was just trying to work out how long it is since we had our last full council meeting, which is the end of June, I believe. So it's some time since we've met formally as council. So welcome. If I could invite Gary to open with a karakia, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Ina mana, ina reo, rauringa terama, tēnā koutou katoa, e te atua kaharawa, haumai ki a mātou te kaha. Ki te whai atu I ngā huarahi tika, mo tēnei hui, I tēnei rā, tihei Māori ora.
Thank you for that. So, into our agenda, obviously, just a few opening comments from myself, nothing significant in that we've sort of been a little bit away, if you like, on account of no meeting July. However, I think for me, one of the bigger highlights of the last few weeks has been, or month or so, has been LGNZ conference. A number of members and Gary attended Christchurch. Looks some really challenging conversations, some really thought-provoking conversations, but all round, I think, a really valuable conference, and one that I think will keep, many themes will keep resonating and coming up for us as the, certainly under LTP unfolds, our discussions around those matters. So yeah, look, really valuable, as is always the case when you go to conference. For me, one of the highlights of the last few weeks has been attending King Te Heitia's formal banquet dinner. It was a real privilege to attend Te Ranga Waiwai as part of the Koronehana celebrations. It was yeah, a real privilege to be part of that, and I'm happy to share some reflections on a personal level over a cup of tea later if anybody's particularly interested. But yeah, a real treat, real great experience. So look, with that said, let's just crack on into our actual agenda proper. Apologies for lateness from Dale Marie. She's had an incident in terms of a vehicle at home. Police have had to be called, unfortunately. So she will join us when she's able. So could I have somebody to move that? Roger will move it. Marcus will second it. I'll put the motion that we accept them. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Disclosures of members' interests. Do we have any? Liz?
Yes, I've got the Mighty River Domain liquor ban item, but I will stay in the room for that in case there's any support needed from staff, so I might just jump into the other seat. Yep. And then obviously the management contract I will leave the room for.
Wonderful, thanks very much for that, Liz. Anybody else have any disclosures they wish to make in terms of their interests? No? None? Those are duly noted. Thank you, Liz. Late items, I'm not aware of there being any. And therefore we'll move on to the confirmation of the order of the meeting. I understand there's to be no change. So I'm happy to move the order of the meeting as it appears. Philip will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on then to the confirmation of open minutes. We've got tiny typographical errors. Thank you, Claire, for noting that. So the motion will now, recommendation rather, will read that the open minutes of the Waipa District Council meeting held on the 30th of June 2023, having been circulated, be taken as read and confirmed as a true and correct record of that meeting, subject to minor typographical errors. Lou, you're happy to move? I will second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Excellent. Thank you for that. In particular, Claire, always reliable in picking up wee mistakes. Right, moving on then to our first item in our agenda, which is updates to council delegations, appearing on tab 7 of our agenda. And Diana. Good morning, Morena, nice to see you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Morena, everyone. So my report is seeking authorisation for additional delegations from council to staff. So I'll take the report as read, but I'll just highlight the key areas. So the report seeks approval for two types of delegations. One's relating to operational delegations and the other relates to resource management delegations. In terms of the operational delegations, we did quite a comprehensive review of the current operational delegations, and as a result, we've recommended quite a few amendments as set out in Appendix 1 to the report, but primarily most of the amendments are to provide clarification for staff, so there's more certainty about what the scope of the delegations are, but there's also a few more substantive amendments which include enabling the Chief Executive to spend up to $100,000 of unbudgeted funding that's subject to conditions, including reporting back to Council. Also the enabling funds to be spent by a recovery manager who have been appointed under the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act. Clarifying that the Chief Executive may only enter into leases or licenses for a maximum of 6 years before requiring approval, and also to increase the maximum amount for the Chief Executive to settle legal claims from $10,000 to $50,000. And a lot of these delegations will eventually be cascaded down to particular staff in due course. And the other changes were to the Resource Management Act, which counted for a few more delegations to the Senior Planner and Project Planner, a new delegation for the new role of Senior Engineer Growth, as well as just a few clarifications to enable staff to receive documents required under the district plan. And finally, with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor being absent in October, there is one power under the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act, which is provided to the Mayor or such other person as designated by Council. And so given the Mayor and Deputy Mayor's absence, we've recommended that Andrew Brown be given that power under Section 25 of the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act. So if there are any questions, I'm very happy to take any questions on those.
Thank you, Diana. Very comprehensive report and summary. Anybody have any questions for Diana in respect of this agenda item? No? Philip?
Mr. Boyle up there, is he past?
Oh, it's all right. It's okay. He's for the next item,
Right.
the second next item, town clerk. Liz?
I was just going to say that after reading the report, all of the kind of suggestions all make a lot of sense to me, a lot of common sense changes there. So happy to move the report.
Thank you, Liz. We have mover and Mr. Pettit will, Councillor Pettit will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jane. Very comprehensive as always. Moving on then to our next item, appearing at tab 8, council committees and appointments. I believe Joe. Good morning, Joe. Nice to see you.
Morning.
Yours.
We've just got a report here now that we've got the new Māori World Councillor on board. What we're looking to do is take the positions that Takina Sterling held and put Councillor Morgan in his place. We also have there a appointment for Councillor Gordon to the Rest Haven appointments panel, which we were looking to do at the same time. Does anyone have any questions about any of those appointments?
Very straightforward and pretty obvious, really. Does anybody have any questions though? That said, you're happy to move and Claire will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Excellent. Thank you very much, Joe. Moving on then to our next item, which is the Cambridge Town Clock refurbishment, revised scope and budget item. We have Greg Boyle appearing via Zoom, I believe, to speak to his report. Morena, Greg, nice to see you. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so just consolidating some of the issues that have been identified as part of the 21 to 31 LTP. As council no doubt be aware, there's been an ongoing issue, including very recently with the reliability of the clock. We've carried out some detailed investigations in parallel with that. Now have a much clearer scope of the work required to not only restore the tower structure, but also some in-depth maintenance on the clock mechanism. And at the same time as we're doing that, while the clock mechanism is out of the tower, we can also move to the automation, which will have some health and safety and operating benefits. To achieve all that, the budget has increased, as you'll see in my report. So there's an additional funding required to undertake the work as a single consolidated integrated project. It makes a lot of sense to do it that way. There's a lot of efficiencies that can be realised as a single project because of the overlaps from the various work elements. So what we're seeking today is council authorisation to fund the shortfall in budget from additional loan. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Greg. Any questions? Right, Mike Montgomery and then Philip Coles.
Thanks, Greg. Look, love the town clock, fully support this, but just want to investigate a little bit further with you the automation. I know it's only 50 grand, but you know, you've got the two options there with and without automation. You're going for the automation. Can you just give us a little bit more detail about that? And look, I sort of have the experience of automation always tends, in my experience, to over promise and under deliver. Yeah, a few more details, please.
Yeah, sure. So automation was considered in the original business case also, and was declined at that point. I guess the main difference now is that we have to do some open heart surgery on the clock mechanism. So there's a cost efficiency in dealing with that at the same time. What the main reason for achieving that is because of the health and safety issues. The current current safety mechanisms that are in place for the full protection when staff are using quite a high ladder from ground level up to the platform where the clock mechanism is located. We can deal with that, so we can avoid that by automating the clock. And secondly, is that there's quite significant cost efficiencies and not having to undertake the regular winding of the clock and resetting of it. So over a period of time, that initial cost will be recovered reasonably quickly, reasonably quick payback period. It deals with the health and safety matters and economically better to do so.
Yeah, I saw that the payback period was high on the automation. So the automation is going to automate the winding and the synchronization of the four faces. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Right. And how high is your level of confidence that that is going to be set and forget?
Yes, I mean that's an area of expertise which is outside my background, but from discussions with the clock maker contractor. That is, there's high confidence that the technologies that are available now, given that it is fitting automation to a fairly dated piece of equipment there, confidence in that it would be successful is high.
And finally, I'm right in saying that we could mitigate the health and safety risk of staff having to go up the clock to wind and reset just by better full arrest technology, which is easy to achieve, eh?
Yeah, yes. The full arrest system at the moment is not completely adequate, and so that would certainly need to be addressed. But it's also taking staff away from their core activities, and undertaking this regular servicing. So it frees them up to do their other work. But the main consideration there is the health and safety factor.
Great questions, Monty. Philip, Councillor Coles has questions for you.
Thanks. Good morning, Greg, and welcome to our meeting today. Along with probably the rest of the community, we're in full support of the clock tower being preserved and upgraded and what have you. It's a very iconic building. It was mentioned with a report a week or two ago that when the clock stopped, and now is it going again? And you mentioned about the reliability. I mean, can they get it going and then it will break? You know, it's not reliable enough. We obviously support the upgrade and everything like that, but I noticed it was going again the other day, where a couple of weeks ago it wasn't. It was my understanding it was broken until it was fully repaired or restored.
Yes, it is back working. It had reached the point, as you can see in my report, that the frequency of servicing the clock has sort of moved from 6 monthly to almost twice a month. And whilst my paper was being finalised, the clock failed again. So the clockmaker was back on site last week. And if I can use the analogy of sort of keyhole surgery versus open heart surgery, which is what it really needs, managed to undertake just a bit more in-depth servicing of it. So it is working now, but as I'm sitting here, I've just seen a communication that the chimes are out of sequence at the moment. So we're having a look at those. What we're really trying to do with the project is, so once we start on the restoration work, there's a dust element attached to that. So trying to, the key to this is to try and coordinate the in-depth servicing of the clock, which will take some time. And if automation's added to it, there's parts that have to be brought in to New Zealand for that. So we're trying to coordinate that work with the restoration works so that we're minimising the outage time. So, we are looking like something like 3 months for the restoration work, while there'll be no clock for that period of time, because it'll be away, taken from the mechanism will be removed from the clock, taken off site into a workshop, opened up and parts replaced. We know it's in reasonably poor condition. So we want to there's no point putting the serviced clock mechanism back into the tower until the restoration work, which generates the dust, has been completed.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thanks for the explanation. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Liz.
Look, thank you, Greg. When I read the report, my heart skipped a beat. 450,000 is obviously a very sizable amount. But I understand the iconicness of the clock. In fact, when I was managing the eyesight many moons ago, the postcard of the clock was one of the most popular sales items we had. So I appreciate, it's much loved. So with that in mind, 450, yes, okay. But if it has to be, it has to be. So happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Liz. Roger will second that. And before I put the motion, I just want to echo your sentiment in terms of it being a very iconic feature in Cambridge, and something that, despite the cost, I think we would be remiss at not putting our money where our mouth is in terms of support for that feature. But I also actually, Greg, want to acknowledge the depth of analysis in your report. It's really pleasing to see a report delivered to us in that nature and so comprehensively. And I just want to say the little part of me loves seeing on page 46, the comment is stitch in time saves 9. Anyway, that's just a strange quirk I have. But look, I'll put the motion, all those in favor. Oh, hold on. Marcus, did you have something you want to add?
Yeah, can we have no more complaints, please, about $70,000 for the Kiki clock? And I think there should be a toss-up between a water tower or a clock, Cambridge. I mean, how many iconic things do you need over there?
Funny. Finish, Marcus? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Greg, and best of luck.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Oh, kia ora, Dale. We're sneaking in. No, good morning, Morena. Nice to see you. Right, moving on to the next item, the Mighty River Domain temporary liquor bans for 2023 to 2024. season. Good morning, David. Oh, look, and there's Liz with a different hat.
In support. Just in support.
Excellent.
Kia ora katoa. Morning. This morning we bring the report for the Mighty River Domain temporary liquor bans for the season of 23-24. From my understanding, this has been in place since 2011 and is well supported by the community and the users of the domain. So I'll take the report as read and give you any questions.
Thank you, David. Monty.
Just one, I take it that the couple of events that don't have the 5 till 9 exemption is deliberate, not accidental. Cool. They asked for that, or did you impose it just out of interest?
So I'll answer that. So yeah, that has been imposed because we've had issues in the past with some events. So we'd, unfortunately, with liquor bans, it's really hard to manage. We've got obviously the police who enforce it, but they can't always be on site. So with some issues in the past, we've actually moved to a 24-hour ban for some events.
Thanks, Monty. Any other questions? Andrew?
Happy to move to recommendation.
Happy to move, and Claire will second that. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent. Painless, thank you. Thanks, David. So then we move on to tab 11, which is a resolution to exclude the public. Reasons are set out there on page 72. I'm happy to move from the chair. Lou will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, team.